Hello, Internet. The voice of Mike Bertolini here, and I'm here to read you a story. This story is both captivating in its horror and its excitement. Remember to subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment below, let me know what you think about this story. So, without any further ado, let's just get into the story. You know, after so long, you would think the fear of a certain memory would dull, right? Well, not in my case. Because after 30 years, I am still terrified now as I was then by what I saw. I guess I should probably explain what happened, right? It all started when I was 10, late July. My family had decided to go on a vacation. Just me, my parents, sister Sally, cousin Sophia. We had rented a cabin that was supposedly had a kitchen, running water, free internet, hell, even air conditioning. But when we got there, we quickly realized we were gypped. Because instead, the cabin was just a medium-sized room with no windows and a small trapdoor in the corner, leading to the cellar. Me, my sister, and Sophia were all pretty bummed at this, but my dad, in an attempt to cheer us up, said, "Well, at least we are right by the lake." My mom, on the other hand, just looked around, sighed, and told everyone to start unpacking. My sister tried to protest, but was cut off by Mom telling her, "We paid good money for this place. We might as well have a good time." So we all got our stuff from my parents' van and started unpacking. But while doing that, Sophia suddenly called out, "Hey guys, check this out." We all ran in to see what she was going to show us, except my sis, who was too busy sitting on a stump outside and painting her nails. "Found this paper lying on the floor. It's kind of creepy," she continued, and she passed it to my dad to read, who became white as a ghost when he was done. He passed it to my mom, and the same thing happened. Finally, it was passed to me. It read, "Rules for the people staying in this cabin. 1. Never go outside between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. 2. If you suddenly hear screaming from behind you, don't turn around. 3. If you see someone you love or are friends with drowning in the lake, do not help them. Instead, call this number. 4. Someone will knock on your door at 3 p.m. on the dot. Do not answer it. 5. Make sure you or someone else alone in this cabin. If you are here by yourself, then vacate the premises immediately. 6. If you see a weeping woman by the shoreline, bring all children inside the cabin before she notices them. 7. If an old lady knocks on your door offering cookies, always take chocolate chip 8. If you hear footsteps inside the cabin that seemingly belong to nobody, hide in the cellar. 8. Make sure all doors are locked when nobody is inside. 9. If you see a dead body in the cabin when you return, get as far away from it as quickly and quietly as possible. Do not return for an hour. If this crosses rule number 1, then pray to whatever deity you choose. If you have any questions, please write them on a birthday card, hide it under the welcome mat, then call the number on rule number 3. Tell the person that answers, "Are the apples fresh?" If you break any of these rules, your safety cannot be guaranteed. "Huh, weird," I muttered. "Probably just some joke," said my mom, but she sounded unsure. "I've heard of these things before on Reddit. You shouldn't take this lightly," said Sophia. Suddenly, my sister was at the door. "Yeah, like I'm gonna listen to a piece of paper written in the 1800s. What does it say anyway?" I grimly handed the paper to my sister, who read it over and started laughing. "There is no way this is real. I mean, seriously? If an old lady knocks on the door offering cookies, always take the chocolate chip? This is so stupid," she said. My parents just looked at each other. "It's time," my dad muttered. "Honey, can we talk to you in private for a second?" said my mom. With that, they walked off. I looked at my cousin, unsure of what to think, and asked, "Didn't you say you read about these things on Reddit?" She just pulled out her phone and showed me a Reddit story surprisingly similar to our situation. After reading the story, she showed me 3 more, but these times did not give enough time to read them. "We are in over our heads, Jake. We should not have come here. Now we will probably die. Or worse," she said. Then I realized she had started crying. "Hey, it's gonna be okay. We will make it through this together. I promise." I comforted her, but I knew I couldn't be making promises. Just then my sister stormed in. Her mascara was runny, and she stomped down into the cellar. My parents followed. I could not shake the feeling they knew something we did not. My parents ignored me and my crying cousin and simply started to lay out the sleeping bags they had brought in case we wanted to sleep out under the stars. When they were done, they simply went to bed, not even staying awake to see if we broke or followed the rules. We could hear my sister crying and yelling out of frustration in the cellar. My cousin continued weeping, but then I realized that was not my cousin. She was sitting up with a confused look on her face. I got up, picked up my list my sister left on the ground, the closest rule I could find to this. Carefully opened the door and peeked out the door, and by the shoreline was a woman with long black hair and pale skin so white it looked like snow. She was wearing a torn and tattered wedding gown and seemed to be soaking wet. I quickly got inside and locked the door. Rule number 6, if you see a weeping woman by the shoreline, bring all the children inside the cabin before she notices them. "What is it?" Sophia asked, to which I shrugged and pointed to rule number 6. She went pale and looked like she wanted to start crying again. The weeping outside kept getting louder, but not closer. It got to the point where it was near impossible to ignore. Somehow we kept silent and did not open the door. Not until an hour after the crying had stopped, that is. I checked the clock. 9 a.m. Still safe to look outside. Me and Sophia peeked out the door and saw nobody there. We both sighed in relief. That is, until we realized how quiet it was in the cellar. We could have sworn my sister was still down there, but we heard nothing from down there. My cousin looked at me and declared she was not going to go there to see if my sister was okay. So I decided to go down. When I got to the bottom, I could not believe it. Inside was what we were promised. 2 queen-size beds, actual rooms, running water, even a giant TV. I looked around some more and realized that there was still no window. Then I realized, what if whatever that thing is, what if it isn't able to get down here? But I realized that it was just wishful thinking when I saw my sister's dead body lying on the floor above her with the words, "I'm sorry," written in her blood. Then I saw it. A slit wrist and a knife lodged in her chest. I puked as I realized she had killed herself. Then I saw it. Next to her, lying in a pool of blood, was a note. I picked it up, blood dripping onto my shirt. It looked like a suicide note. Reading it made my face drop and tears start flooding down. "Dear Mommy and Daddy, I'm sorry. I could not have been stronger. I'm sorry I could not handle it, but after what you told me the real terrors of this world, I cannot take it anymore. Besides, it's best if I die by my own hand than whatever the hell you described to me's hands. I'm sorry. Love your daughter, Sally." I dropped the paper and stopped, holding back tears. Tears streamed down my face like somebody had opened the floodgates. I loudly sobbed, damning whatever my parents had told her about to hell, then my parents. I screamed, yelled, called her name, and begged her to come back. God knows how long I was down there, but when I finally realized she was dead and no amount of screaming could bring her back, I went back upstairs. Sophie had grabbed the sleeping bag from the car while I was down there and was softly snoring. Next to her was a curled up sleeping bag. She probably decided to bring me in one so I didn't have to go sleep on the ground. I knew I'd not get any sleep though, so I just sat next to her sleeping body and thought, it was unfair. Why, of all the terrible, nasty people in this world, why were we the ones who ended up here? Did God really hate my family that much? Then I got to the burning question. What did Mom and Dad say to Sally? And of course, being a 10-year-old kid, I thought of all the terrifying, gruesome, and deadly things I could. I started crying. Then I heard footsteps coming towards me. I looked up and saw nothing. Then I felt a hand on my back and I heard a female with a very rough voice say, Don't cry, child. Your sister is among the stars now, as you soon will be. I turned around to see who it was, but saw nothing. Who are you? I asked into the darkness. Are you what my parents told my sister about? I heard a scuffling next to me like something was sitting down. No, the one described by your mother and father is but another exterminator like me, she told me. Exterminator? Yes, being sent by God to rid the world of humans, so they may start anew and not make the mistake of creating your kind. What do you mean by that? Your kind has ruined the earth. You destroyed the earth, wiped out entire species, and if your loving kind continues, the earth will no longer be habitable. But why us? We have never had anything to do with this. Once a few have gone missing, or will come to look, then before you know it, nearly all of them will be dead. Wait, are there more of you? More exterminators? Of course, little one. There's one in Yellowstone, one in the Grand Canyon, and one even in Acadia. But why only woodsy areas? If you're trying to kill mankind, then why not Detroit? We are unable to inhabit large cities like those. Too much smoke in the air. But don't worry, God has a plan for those humans. So, are you going to kill me? For some reason, this entity's presence filled me with a feeling of calmness and reassurance. Well, you're a human, aren't you? Can I at least say goodbye first? They did not answer for a minute, and I could tell they were thinking about it. Yes, just do not wake them. She said finally as I walked over to Sophia and hugged her. Goodbye, Sophia. Then I walked over to my mom and kissed her forehead. I forgive you, I told her, and whispered to my dad. Good luck, Pa. I heard the footsteps again. Are you finished? They asked. Yeah, but before you kill me, what is your name? Suddenly the woman I saw by the beach appeared in front of me and said in the same voice as the lady, I am La Llorona. She raised her arm above her head and a large silver and gold sword appeared in her hand. Goodbye, child, she said in a motherly voice, then swung the sword. I woke up on a beach. The sky was a brilliant orange with a red tint. The sand was gray and littered with broken glass. Collage certificates, rusted trophies, etc. The waves that washed on the shore were blood red. The shore of broken dreams really is something, huh, kid? Turned around to where the voice was coming from so fast I fell face first in the trash-littered sand. A strong hand lifted me up off the sand and placed me standing upright. There we go, said the person. Looking up, I saw a man with a large brown beard belly, and a balding head. He was dressed in what looked like an old and torn tuxedo, and his eyes seemed to blur when I focused on them. You're new here, so I'll give you a basic rundown of the place. Just stick with me and you'll be fine, said the man in a gruff voice. Without waiting for a response, he started walking in the opposite direction of me. I quickly picked myself up and chased after him. Broken glass and blood came. Pain. Where am I? I asked. You're in the afterlife, kid. So, is this hell? I asked. No, he responded flatly. So, this is heaven? I asked, getting more and more curious. Uh, I don't I don't know, we wish. No, God does not want our kind in this place, he responded. So where are we? I asked. Exactly what I said before. The afterlife. He started to look a bit irritated. So who are you anyway? I asked. Psychopomps. But you can just call me David. I noticed we were in a completely different place at that point. The best way I could describe it is a forest. But all the trees were as black as midnight. Dark blue leaves covered the treetops so densely I could not see the sky. The sounds of distorted bird calls rang through the air at all times. The glass looked like blood droplets frozen in time right as they were falling. So, does this place have anything that isn't distorted versions of things on Earth? I asked. Here's some advice, kid. Don't die again. If you do, your soul will just evaporate and you will become nothing, he said glumly. I decided to ignore the fact that he was completely dodged my question. So where are we going anyway? I asked. Sparsland, he replied. Are we close? I asked. We just arrived, actually, he told me in front of us. The forest opened into a vast field. A large wall made of what seemed to be glowing bricks came into view, and a large drawbridge was attached to the wall. Come on, let's get going, David said as he grabbed my arm and dragged me along. We approached the wall and noticed that there was a moat surrounding it. The water streamed with blood red and crocodile-like things with no eyes. David stood still for a second before yelling. The drawbridge fell with a long and loud squeal. David pulled me inside and started giving me a tour of the town. And as he talked, I listened intently since I knew that this was going to be my new home. I awoke the next morning to find myself in a burlap sack. Tried to get out, but the sack would not tear or offer any hope of getting out. So naturally, I started crying. Please be quiet, young one. I am merely trying to smuggle you out of the afterlife, came the voice of La Llorona from outside the burlap sack. Please state your name and your purpose for wanting to leave the afterlife, ma'am, said what sounded like a very bored person who only works that job because it pays the bills. I am La Llorona, and I am one of the exterminators, said La Llorona. Okay, ma'am, and what do you have in your sack? Asked the employee. One of the people I must kill remains very persistent, so I'm bringing a little something along with me to make it harder for her to keep resisting, La Llorona told him. Okay, ma'am, go ahead, said the employee. I heard some scuffling and a loud ear-piercing sound, and with that, I was being dumped out of the bag and onto the sand of a normal beach. Looking up, I saw La Llorona, and behind her, the cabin I had been in the night before. Why did you bring me back? I asked. La Llorona merely smiled and disappeared. I was in myself, and apart from the scar from La Llorona's sword and the slash on my feet from walking through the beach of broken dreams barefoot, I tried to get up, but immediately collapsed from the wounds on my feet. Help! I yelled, hoping my parents or Sophia were still alive and could help me. When nobody came, I tried again, and again, and again, until finally someone heard my cries. Sophia came running through the door and found me wounded and afraid. Turns out I had hit the timing lottery as Sophia and my dad was packing up to leave when she found me. If I had been brought back any later, well, I don't like to think about it. We packed up and left. I later learned that my parents had run into the exterminator in Arcadia, which is why they immediately knew what was going on right from the start. And apparently my mom died. She broke rule number 4. But other than that, Currently, I'm 43 years old and got my own place, and the family just about everything a person could ask for. But last night, my wife surprised us by saying she was going to take the family to Ford Lake in Michigan, not to worry about her since she had found a nice cabin with a kitchen, running water, free internet, hell, even air conditioning. Guess I will be meeting La Llorona after all.